Can you help
Yes.
explain some of that?
Yes, I can.
So on paper, it looks like we're kind of heading into a real 4+ year pickle in terms of the capital budget, but the picture's not quite as dire you seem to indicate.
Okay. So the financial position of the City of Calgary is very, very, very strong. Not only do we have among the lowest residential property taxes of any big city in the country, the lowest residential property taxes of any big city in the country, we also have an exceptionally good cash situation. Our balance sheet is strong. Our debt has gone down significantly since 2013. The challenge is moving forward in a time where the provincial government has signaled that they'll be spending a lot less on capital, and citizens have signaled that they want us to spend a lot more on things like snow removal and roads and transit in particular. We can't be all of those things. So if council wants to live within the box that it's set of property tax rates that are basically just below inflation plus population growth, it actually means service cuts. It means that we can't invest in the things that people want us to invest in. And on the capital side, it means we can't build the things that people are asking us to build. So council really has to decide, do you want to live within that box? In which case you can't give people the things they're asking for, or do you want to expand the box? And that's really part of the conversation today.
So sorry, to stay within the indicative rates.
Correct.
What would that mean for the city's 4-year budget then?
Well, let's take an example. Okay, so a week or two ago, council agreed to massively increase the amount that we spend on snow removal for sidewalks and pathways for pedestrians. The amount that we looked at is anywhere between about 0.8% of a property tax increase all the way up to 2%. We cannot do that within the property tax indicative rates that we passed a couple months ago. And yes, people can say, well, cut in other places. But what citizens have consistently told us is they want us to spend the same or more in pretty much every service we offer. So this is the conundrum we face. All governments face this conundrum. It's a principle of basic economics. But in this particular case, because council has signaled that it actually wants to invest in these things, they've got to figure out a way to pay for it.
So if you want to invest in those things, then that means cuts will have to happen somewhere else.
Or taxes have to go up.
Or taxes go up by more than the indicative rate.
Correct.
Will that require reconsideration of what? To council?
You see, that word indicative is sort of a magic word because it doesn't really need a reconsideration because it was only indicative. But that said, that's the conversation council really has to have, and I don't want to put all my cards on the table yet. But I do want to say that particularly on snow removal, if that is a priority for council, then that is probably going to have to come from the revenue side. I can't see where you find such a big number on the cost side.
How can you go through this process when you don't know how much money you're getting from the provincial government in terms of grants, and you don't have clarity yet on your biggest cost, which is labor?
So now you're talking about two different things. Number one is on the capital side. On the capital side, it's very hard to develop a capital budget when you don't have certainty from the other orders of government of what's going to happen. Now, in reality, because the city is so big and our capital projects are multi-year, that's really not going to hit us in the face until 2020, 2021, because the stuff for 19 is pretty much baked in already. So we've got a bit of breathing room, but it's hard to create a 4-year budget without those numbers. On labor, that is an excellent question. And certainly we have certain labor assumptions baked into the budget as it is now, but I would be sure a lot happier if we actually had labor agreements in front of us.
So if you don't have those things in place by November, you just go on, you've baked in an assumption of what it could cost.
I mean, look, on labor there's a very technical issue, which is that if you are operating outside of the period of a contract, you enter into what's called a statutory freeze, which means that you stay the same. But I would much prefer to have an agreement in place.
On the capital side, there was a $7.5 billion figure over 4 years. Does that include anything for the Olympics or the Green Line?
No, that's base stuff. So the Green Line is separate because it has its own funding sources. And so the $7.5 billion you're looking at is what is called essential, current, and enhanced capital. And let me see if I can remember what each of those things are. Essential is keep the lights on stuff, fix the boilers. Current is do enhancements to existing facilities to make them a little bit better. So, you might improve an intersection, like there's an intersection improvement going on at 52nd Street and McKnight right now. And enhanced is actually something new and better. But the enhanced is only 500 million of the 7.5 billion. So of the 7.5 billion, 7 is basic stuff.
So that 7.5 billion figure does not include the green line? Wow.
No, it's not that crazy. Because if you think about it, last year, not including the green line, we put $2 billion in the economy in a time of downturn. So our capital budget can range between, probably the lowest I've seen is $1.5 billion up to $4 or $5 billion per year, depending on what we're building. So $7.5 billion over 4 years is not out of the ordinary at all. What is out of the ordinary is we don't have any commitments from the province for capital grants over that time period.
There was something else Jim Stevens mentioned, though, as well, that this was a larger ask than we've made before in terms of the things we'd like to have versus our sources for revenue.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. The gap is the problem. It's not so much that the ask is larger, it's that the ask is so much larger versus the amount of money we actually have. Because if you look at, there's actually a slide that shows what our asks are. And it's actually gone down a teensy bit, but our sources have gone down significantly.
Should Calgary be named the host city of the 2026 Olympics in September of next year, how significant an impact could a project like that have on the remaining 3 years of the city's 4-year budget?
If we're smart about it, and if we get the deal that we need to get from the other orders of government as well as from the IOC on this, that actually frees up some of the pressure on our budget. Because, for example, some of the infrastructure that we need to find funding for might be funded through an Olympic envelope. In Vancouver, I've read numbers, I haven't actually done the analysis, but I've read numbers that for every $1 that was spent by the city, we attracted $10 to $12 of infrastructure funding from the other orders of government and the IOC. So one could think of the Olympics actually as a way to manage the transfer payments problem that we have, the equalization payments problem that we have here in Alberta, by actually bringing in investment from the province and from the feds to make up a little bit for the huge amount of surplus taxes we send to those other governments that are much greater than the amount that's invested in Alberta and in Calgary.
So it would result in changes, but it wouldn't, necessitate a complete redraw of the final 3 years.
It might actually be much better. It might make things look better if we get the deal.